We have that. I don't the radio question. Get it, go better. How do I look at? Yes, and okay. Mangalati to be sung. Mangalati to be sung. Mangalati gani. Sansara dava nalamedhaluka pranaya karunya ghanaghanatvam praptasya kalyana gunanavasya vande guruho shri charanarvindam Mahaprabhu ki tananitya gita vaditamadhyam Manasurasena romanchakam Shutaranga bhajo Vande Guru Shri चरणारविन्दं श्रीविग्रहारा धननित्यानना शृङ्गारतन्मन्दिरमाजनादौ युक्तस्य भक्तं तनियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरोः श्री चरणारविन्दं चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत्प्रसादो स्वादानत्वेष्टान् हरिभक्तसङ्घान् कृतवैव तृप्तिं भजता सदैव वन्दे गुरोः श्री चरणारविन्दम् श्रीराधिका धवयोरपार माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नां प्रतिक्षणास्व दनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरोः श्री चरणारविन्दम् निकुञ्जयोनो रतिकेलिसिद्ध्यै यायालिभेरयो तेरपेक्षणीया तत्रातिदाक्ष्य अतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरोः श्री चरणारविन्दम् साक्षाद्धरित्वेन समस्तशास्त्रे उक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोदयः प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरोः श्री चरणारविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादान् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायं स्तुवंस्तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरोः श्री चरणारविन्दम् नमः विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नरसिंहते नमस्ते नर सिंहाय प्रह्लादहलाददायिने हिरण्याकाशिपूर्वक्षः शिलाटङ्कानखानाय एतो नरसिंह परतो नरसिंह यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंह नरसिंह हृदये नरसिंह नरसिंहामदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये तव करकमलभरे नाथां अद्भुत श्रृंगार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तानु भृंगा केशवधृता नरहरि रूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय भक्त प्रहलाद लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जय भक्त प्रहलाद जय श्री श्री लक्ष्मी नरसिंह देव भगवान की जय। तुलसी आते वृंदाय तुलसी देवी आय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति देवी सत्यवत्ते नमो नमः नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी ये तुम्हारा शरण लोए तारा वांछा पूर्ण होए कृपा कोरि कर तारे वृंदावन वासी मोरा ए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास नयने हरिबो सदा युगल रूप राशि ए निवेदन धरो सखेर अनुगत करो सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी दीन कृष्ण दासे कोय ए न मोरा होय श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी यानी कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे वृंदाय तुलसी देवी आय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णु भक्ति देवी सत्यवत्ते नमो नमः वृंददेवी तुलसी महारानी की जय। On the fifth day of the dark lunar fortnight, sorry? I have with me. Okay. On the fifth day of the dark lunar fortnight of the month of Govinda, corresponding to February 6th, 1874 AD by the Western calendar, at 3:30 in the afternoon, Bimal Prasad Dutt, later to be known as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, made his appearance in Purushottam Kshetra, Jagannath Puri, in the state of Odisha, not far from the temple of Lord Jagannath. He was the fourth son of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Shiyukt. Yeah. He was the fourth son of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur and Shiyukt Bhagavati Devi. And at the time of his birth, all 32 bodily symptoms of a Mahapurush, a great personality, were pointed out by an experienced astrologer. Furthermore, the boy was born with his umbilical cord wrapped around his neck like a Brahman's thread. The astrologer commented at his birth, quote, I have done many horoscopes in my life, but I have never before seen such a horoscope filled with all the signs of a great personality. This child will become world famous as a brilliant teacher of life's ultimate goal. When the child was 6 months old, Lord Jagannath's Rath Yatra festival was in procession, and the cart stopped in front of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house for 3 days. Following the instructions of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhagavati Devi brought the child before the cart, and an offered garland fell from the neck of the Lord, encircling the boy. This was taken as a sign of special favor by all present. The grain ceremony was observed on the cart at this time and was done with Jagannath Prasad. When the boy's vocational inclination was tested, he immediately embraced the Srimad Bhagavatam, indicating his future. Indicating his future as a preacher. Therefore, from the very beginning of his appearance, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur exhibited all the signs of an exalted, eternal associate of the Lord, who had descended in answer to Srila Bhaktivinoda's prayer for a ray of Vishnu to help him spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Although family lineage may be ultimately irrelevant when considering the appearance of an eternally liberated associate of the Lord, still it is interesting to see what sort of family is blessed with such a transcendental personality. As history shows us, Lord Brahma himself appeared in the family of Muslims as Srila Haridas Thakur, and there are other instances of exalted persons taking birth in humble families. Still, as a point of interest, we may hear something of the lineage of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. His family line traces back to Lord Brahma from the descendants of Chitragupta, and they are known as the Brahma Kayasthas. Bharata is the 87th generation from Chitragupta, Bharadwaja is the 88th. After him came Angira, and after him appeared Brihaspati. In the 149th generation of descendants, Purushottam, son of Shivadatta, went to Bengal upon the summons of the king of Bengal, Adisur. Purushottam's youngest son took sannyas and became famous as Kanak Dandi. In the 7th and 8th generation of Purushottam's family, Binayak and his son Narayan Datta both did ministerial work for the king of Bengal. In the 15th generation from Purushottam, Raja Krishnanand, the king of Kheturi in Bengal and the father of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, the great Vaishnavacharya, appeared. Raja Krishnanand was also a great devotee and was personally favored by Lord Nityanand Prabhu. The 7th generation from Raja Krishnanand saw the appearance of Madan Mohan Dutt, who was very famous in Bengal and Calcutta for his spiritual qualities. His great grandson was Anand Chandra Dutt, and his son was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whose fourth son was Bimal Prasad. The name Bimal or Sri Bimala Devi refers to Parashakti, internal potency of Lord Jagannath. So his name literally means the mercy of the internal potency of the Lord. Bimal Prasad stayed in Jagannath Puri. Bimal Prasad, so his name literally means the mercy of, the mercy of internal potency of the Lord. Bimal Prasad stayed in Jagannath Puri for 10 months after his appearance and then journeyed to Bengal by palanquin on his mother's lap. He grew up in his early years in Rana Ghat in the district of Nadia, hearing about Krishna from his mother. When he was a small boy, perhaps 2 or 3 years old, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought some ripe mangoes from the market. Bimal Prasad took one to eat, saying, "This is mine." Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur got up and said in a grave voice, "What is this? New fruit has come into the house." it has not been offered to Giridhari, and you have taken it first? Remember, new fruit is to be given first to the Lord. Without giving the first share to the Lord, nothing is to be taken. Unquote. The child was very repentant and exclaimed, quote, "Oh, what evil thoughts I have had! Throughout my whole life, I shall not eat these again. This is the right punishment for one ruled by greed." Unquote. He made the promise and observed it throughout his life. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada comments on this incident. Whenever we offered him mango, he said, "No, I am an offender. I cannot take mango." He was thinking that I have offended Krishna in my childhood by taking the mango of the deity. So this is the characteristic of the Acharya. They teach by their life's action. One should be so much determined. A child took the mango, there is no offense, but he took that vow. Unquote. Next section, education. When Vimal Prasad was 7 years old, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was constructing the Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta at Ram Bagan. During that construction, a deity of Lord Kurma was unearthed. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ordered his son to begin a regulated worship of that deity. From the very beginning, the boy used to hear the preaching of his father with rapt attention. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, as well as his audience, were amazed to see how a small boy could hear the topics of Krishna consciousness with such total absorption. By the age of 7, he had committed the entire Bhagavad Gita to memory and could wonderfully explain the verses as well. By the age of 7, he had committed the entire Bhagavad Gita to memory and could wonderfully explain the verses as well. Later on, he was trained in publishing and proofreading at Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's printing press in connection with the Thakur's well-known spiritual journal, the Sajjan Toshini. At the age of 11, Bimal Prasad toured the various places of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leelas with his father. Bimal Prasad had an eidetic memory. Whatever he would read once, he could later recall with perfect clarity.
Right. The memory.
Just memory? He was trained in mathematics and astrology at the Sri Ramapur school, and he achieved such astounding scholarship that he was eventually awarded the title Siddhant Saraswati by his tutors, Pandit Mahesh Chandra Chodamani and Pandit Sundarlal. During this period, he used to attend the Sunday weekly meetings of Thakur Bhaktivinod's Vishwa Vaishnav Raj Sabha and hear the Thakur lecture on the Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu of Srila Rupa Goswami. He was never known to study his school assignments, and while sitting at home would replace those assignments with studies of Srila Narottam Das Thakur's Prarthana, Prema Bhakti Chandrika and other devotional literatures. However, whatever questions he was asked by his teachers, he would immediately answer, and he got excellent results on all of his examinations. He used to debate everyone he met on all sorts of subjects. No one who argued with him was ever able to defeat him. Just as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had defeated a great scholar, Keshav Kashmiri, at a young age, so similarly Bimal Prasad once, during his later college days, debated a scholar named Panchanan Sahitacharya, the disciple of Vasudev Shastri, a very famous professor of that time, on the topics of astrological calculation. The debate was held in the home of Sri Rajendra Chandra Shastri and judged by him as well. After some discussion, that scholar had to accept defeat. In fact, the scholar became so mortified that he could not check the calls of nature. After that, everyone was reluctant to debate him for fear of being defeated. He used to debate everyone he met on all sorts of subjects, no one who argued with him was ever able to defeat him. Just as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had defeated a great scholar, Keshav Kashmiri, at a young age, so similarly Bimal Prasad once, during his later college days, debated a scholar named Panchanan Sahityacharya, the disciple of Vasudev Shastri, a very famous professor of that time on the topics. Panchanan. Sorry? Panchanan Sahityacharya, the disciple of Vasudev Shastri. Panchanan Sahityacharya. The debate was held in the home of Sri Rajendra Chandra Shastri and judged by him as well. After some discussion, that scholar had to accept defeat. In fact, the scholar became so mortified that he could not check the calls of nature. After that, everyone was reluctant to debate him for fear of being defeated. At the age of 11, while in the 5th class, Bimal Prasad invented a type of shorthand writing called Bicento, and it was during this period that he took a tour of the holy places with his father. When the boy was in 7th class, within brackets equivalent to today's 8th class, and about 13 years old, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur brought Tulsi beads for his son from Jagannath Puri and gave him the name of Hari and a Narasimha mantra to chant, which he executed very faithfully along with the worship of his Kurma deity, according to the instructions of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. At the age of 16, while his schooling continued, the books of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur formed the serious content of his studies. He also began writing books on astrology, and during this time he formed the Chir Kumar Sabha, or the August Assembly, amongst his friends. Chir Kumar Sabha. With whom, and during this time he formed the Chir Kumar Sabha, or the August Assembly, amongst his friends with whom he met regularly at Calcutta's Beedon Square. There they used to discuss topics related to religion, and the members were required to take a vow of celibacy. The society was formed with the purpose of giving people a chance to remain seriously engaged in worship of the Lord and detached from family life. But Bimal Prasad was the only one who observed his vows immaculately. In 1892, at the age of 18, he took an entrance examination and entered Calcutta's Sanskrit College. As before, he paid scant attention to the prescribed books, but he found the time to read all of the philosophical books contained in the library. During his college days, he would discuss the Vedas with the scholar Shriyukt Prithvidhar Sharma. Although Siddhanta Saraswati had become learned in all 6 branches of Vedic knowledge, Shiksha, pronunciation, Kalpa, sequences of Vedic sacrifices, Vyakarana, grammar, especially the use of word roots, inflected words and sentences, Nirukta, meanings of inflected words and word roots, Chandaha, recitation of Vedic hymns, and Jyotisha, astrological and astronomical calculation. Still, to study the Vyakarana, the grammatical branch of the Vedas, he approached the Pandit Prithvidhar Sharma. The Pandit praised him for his achievements and encouraged him to study the Siddhanta Kaumudi throughout his life. Siddhanta Saraswati replied, quote, "My life is for the single-minded cultivation of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya, not for the cultivation of grammar. I have only studied the Vedas, the branches of the Vedas, and their related parts in a secondary manner." Unquote. In 1895, he left the college as he was very eager to execute his worship of the Lord and to remain free from the pressure to enter family life. He stated in his autobiography, quote, "If I remain studying with careful attention at the college, then extreme pressure will be brought upon me to enter family life. But if I am considered to be foolish and inefficient, then no one will put such an inducement upon me, for becoming so engaged. By this consideration, I left Sanskrit college, and in order to maintain my life for the service of Hari, I was desirous of getting an honest occupation which I could perform with the intention of earning a humble income. Unquote. During his student days, he also wrote essays on spiritual topics for various magazines and strongly condemned various religious malpractices which had become prominent in society. At the Bhakti Bhavan in 1897, he established a Chatushpathi, a small academy called Saraswati Chatushpathi. Yeah. He established a Chatushpathi called Saraswati Chatushpathi, where many learned persons from Calcutta attended his lectures and discourses on astronomy. He also published the magazines Jyotirvid and Brihaspati and other old astrological texts like the Surya Siddhanta, a famous and highly regarded Sanskrit astronomical treatise. Here he also established and added the Bhakti Panjika, an almanac. He was well acquainted with both the eastern and western branches of astrology, but naturally followed the Vedic one. Okay. He was offered a chair in astronomy at the University of Calcutta by Sir Ashutosh Mukherjee, but Siddhanta Saraswati declined it, thinking it an impediment to his spiritual life. At the request of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, he composed the Sri Navdeep Panjika, a Krishnized almanac in which the months, lunar fortnights, days, lunar days, stars, etc. were all given names of Vishnu. He did not spend very long in his astronomical pursuits, however, and soon dedicated himself fully to the worship and distribution of the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was also employed by the royal kings of Tripura from 1895 to 1905 in various services. Initially, he accepted the post of editor under Panchshrik Maharaj Veer Chandra Manikya Bahadur, and he edited a history of their family life entitled Raj Ratnakar. During this time, he studied all of the principal books in the royal library. A year later, however, the Maharaj departed from this world. The succeeding king, Maharaj Radha Kishore Manikya Bahadur, entrusted Siddhanta Saraswati with the instruction of the sons of the king in Bengali and Sanskrit. The king also requested him to put an end to various cheating activities of persons who were misappropriating royal wealth. Siddhanta Saraswati quickly stopped this nonsense, much to the delight of the king. He assisted the royal family in different ways until 1905. At that time, he requested to be given leave, and this was granted along with a full pension, which he accepted for some time and then later discarded. During this 10-year period, many other significant events took place as well. In 1897, he began to strictly observe the vows of Chaturmasya, including the practice of cooking for himself one preparation daily, taking the food from the ground, and lying on the earth without any bedding or pillow. In 1898, he toured Banaras, Prayag, and Gaya with Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and discussed philosophy with persons in the line of Sri Ramanujacharya. In 1899, Siddhanta Saraswati published a number of articles on spiritual topics in the magazine called Nivedana, a Calcutta weekly. Next, initiation. Siddhanta Saraswati had been engaged in regularly chanting the Mahamantra and a Narasimha mantra given to him by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur when he was in the 7th class, and he had been worshipping the Kurma deity. discovered in laying the foundation of the Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta since the age of 7. Without fail, he had been executing that worship and chanting since his boyhood, and from 1885 onward, he had received special training in printing, editing, etc. at the press at the Bhakti Bhavan. Sorry? Okay. Siddhanta Saraswati had been engaged in regularly chanting the Mahamantra and a Narasimha mantra given to him by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur when he was in the 7th class, and he had been worshipping the Kurma deity since the age of 7. Without fail, he had been executing that worship and chanting since his boyhood, and from 1885 onward, he had received special training in printing, editing, etc. at the press at the Bhakti Bhavan. Thus, the young man was a very qualified candidate for becoming the disciple of a guru. Many pseudo gurus, mantra peddlers, of the Sahajya category wanted to have him as their disciple to increase their false prestige. After all, Siddhanta Saraswati was a magistrate's son. He was a strict renunciate from birth. He was learned and deeply attached to the scriptures. But Siddhanta Saraswati was not interested in such pretenders. In 1898, after Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had constructed his residence in Navdeep Dham at Godrum Dweep and called it Swanand Sukhad Kunj, and sometime after the discovery of Lord Chaitanya's birth site by the Thakur and Srila Jagannath Das Babaji, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj arrived in Navdeep Dham to see the site of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's birth and to hear the discourses of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. When he arrived, he was singing in ecstasy. His only possessions were the tulsi mala which he wore around his neck and another set he kept in his hand for counting. He kept a few books such as Narottam Das Thakur's birth, Prarthana and Prem Bhakti Chandrika. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji had been performing bhajan for many years in Vrindavan. He was extremely renounced and was the disciple of Bhagwat Das Babaji, the disciple of Jagannath Das Babaji. He was not well educated and had been a grain merchant in his previous existence. But it was widely known that he was liberated Paramhamsa of the highest caliber in the area of Rajmandal. At the time of his arrival, he was wearing a cap made of tiger skin and was carrying a basket of various items and materials for his service. He spotted Siddhanta Saraswati and offered him 4 or 5 pieces of knotted rope for chanting rounds, a tilak stamp with initials for Hare Krishna, the tiger skin cap, and paraphernalia for worship. Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj had received the basket and cap from his spiritual master, Bhagwat Das Babaji. Siddhanta Saraswati was very attracted to Gaur Kishore Das Babaji's lotus feet at first sight. He was later to comment with great humility, quote, I have been very busy within this material world, trying to bring sense gratification within the grasp of my hand. I have often thought that by obtaining the objects of sense gratification, all my shortcomings will be fulfilled. I often attained different facets that were indeed very rare, but my own personal shortcomings were never mitigated. In this material world, I have had the association of very high-class aristocratic persons. However, seeing their various deficiencies, I could not offer them praise. The most merciful Supreme Lord, Sri Gaur Sundara, seeing me in such a lamentable condition at such a time of adversity, gave permission to his 2 dearmost devotees, within brackets, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, to grant their blessings to me. Because I was always intoxicated with a worldly false ego, wanting again and again self-appraisal, I deprived myself of my own real benefit. But because of the influence of my previous birth's activities in devotional service, I came into the association of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was the form of my spiritual well-wisher. my spiritual master, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, would go and visit Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and many times would reside with him. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, out of his compassion for other living entities, pointed out my spiritual master, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji. Upon seeing my spiritual master, the extent of my worldly false ego diminished. I knew that all the other living entities who have taken the human form of life were also fallen and low like myself. But by gradually observing the spiritual character of my master, I realized that only a Vaishnava could reside in this material world and be of exemplary character. Unquote. At Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's urging, sorry, go on. Time. 6:06. At Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's urging, the young man approached Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji for initiation in the month of Magh of the year 1900. Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji expressed reluctance to accept him, knowing Siddhanta Saraswati to be a great scholar. Finally, when Siddhanta Saraswati pleaded with him for initiation, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji replied, Mahaprabhu will be asked. If he gives permission, your desire will be fulfilled. On another day, Siddhanta Saraswati approached him again and asked, what was Mahaprabhu's order? Gaur Kishore Das Babaji replied, I forgot to ask. The third time Babaji Maharaj was requested, he replied, I asked, I did not receive the command of Mahaprabhu. Siddhanta Saraswati then stood up, his heart breaking, and said, you, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Gaur Kishore, are both worshippers of Krishna, the crest jewel of debauchees. Therefore, why will you take mercy on someone dedicated to ordinary morality like me? In his pastimes as the exemplary teacher, Mahaprabhu has given instructions on the worship of Krishna, the crest jewel of debauchees. Therefore, why will he give the command to take mercy on me? But Karuna na haile kandiya kandiya prana na rakhibo ar. If there is no mercy, weeping and weeping, I can sustain my life no more. If I do not receive your mercy, I do not see any need in holding on to life. Unquote. After thus indicating his readiness to take his life, Siddhanta Saraswati began to cry. Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji's heart was melted to see this. So he told him to take bath in the Saraswati and then come back to him. At the time of initiation, he gave Siddhanta Saraswati the name Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitadas. This pastime bears a striking resemblance to the relationship between Narottam Das Thakur and Loknath Goswami. Loknath Goswami was also an extremely humble and renounced Paramahamsa who was reluctant to take any disciples, considering himself unqualified, but finally accepted Narottam Das Thakur as his only disciple. It shows how eager and determined one must be for the mercy of a pure devotee of Krishna. Next chapter, in Puri. In 18... Sorry? Fast reading? Okay. In 1898, Siddhanta Saraswati had accompanied his father to Kashi, Prayag and Gaya, and had gathered many facts about all these holy places, which were later incorporated into his commentary on the Chaitanya Charitamrita called Anubhashya. In 1900, he published a book called Bange Samajikata, which described the origin, location and philosophy of various societies, castes and religions, and he expounded the clear superiority of Lord Chaitanya's doctrine of inconceivable simultaneous oneness and difference. In March, he accompanied Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur to Orissa, where they visited the temple of Shir Chora Gopinath at Remuna and also saw Bhuvaneshwar and Puri. While in Puri, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur decided to build a place for bhajan just near the samadhi of Srila Haridas Thakur. And so, Siddhanta Saraswati stayed and served his father in various ways. assisting him in establishing his Bhakti Kuti by the sea. At that time, the Maharaja of Kashim Bazar was camped nearby, and he came regularly to hear from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Siddhanta Saraswati. Siddhanta Saraswati was giving regular classes from the Chaitanya Charitamrita in the presence of his father, and many listeners were assembling just to hear it. The famous Radha Raman Charan Das Babaji used to come at that time to hear the discourses. Later, relations with the Babaji were broken because of two deviations by him. First, he introduced the chanting of Bhaj Nitai Gaur Radhesham, Japa Hare Krishna Hare Ram. This was introduced with the idea of stopping the audible chanting of the Mahamantra. The first problem with this was that the concocted mantra had the faults of Siddhanta Virod, an opposing conclusion, and rasabhas, conflicting rasas. The second problem was that trying to surpass the audible vibration of the Mahamantra was against the desire of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as established by his activities and teaching, as well as by the teachings of the Goswamis. Rupa Goswami had written in the Pratham Chaitanya Ashtak, text 5, Hare Krishneti Uchchaihi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chants the Hare Krishna mantra in a loud voice. Rupa Goswami had written, this is in Puri. Hare Krishneti Uchchaihi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu chants the Hare Krishna mantra in a loud voice. Therefore, Rupa Goswami, an eyewitness to the activities of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and recipient of his full blessings and empowerment for establishing his mission, personally testifies here that Lord Chaitanya did not confine the Mahamantra to inaudible muttering, but loudly proclaimed it to all. Second, Radha Raman Charan Das Babaji also introduced the Sakhi Bheki doctrine by addressing his followers Sri Jai Gopal Bhattacharya as Lalita Sakhi. This was against Mahaprabhu's teaching as well, as an ordinary jiva was being worshipped as though he were an extension of Srimati Radharani. Both Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Siddhanta Saraswati instructed the Babaji to give up these fallacious practices, but he refused. Siddhanta Saraswati began to preach publicly and strongly against these misconceived teachings, proclaiming that the Mahamantra is for both Japa and Kirtan, and that Kirtan is ultimately superior to Japa. This created quite a controversy in Puri, with many taking the side of the Babaji out of misplaced sentiment and others siding with Siddhanta Saraswati. During this period, Siddhanta Saraswati was engaged in the compilation of a Vaishnava encyclopedia which contained an explanation of the Vaishnava terminology, brief biographies of great Vaishnavas, an introduction to the books of the Vaishnavacharyas, a description of the Vaishnava Tirthas, the various conclusions of the Vaishnava sects, etc. He called it Vaishnav Manjusha Samahriti, and it was later published in 4 volumes. A Vaishnava scholar commented on it by saying, quote, "This work is only possible for a supra-mortal, a great personality like Prabhupada, Srila Saraswati Thakur. Even if 25 to 30 scholars and 10 to 15 men taking the treasury of a king began the work, they would be unable to edit it." Unquote. The work of compilation was begun in Puri and continued as Siddhanta Saraswati made his preaching rounds of Sri Mayapur Dham, Sri Jagannath Puri Dham, and Sri Vraj Dham. He also studied the books of Srila Madhvacharya and Srila Ramanacharya and published some of them in Bengali. He also published biographies of these and other Vaishnava saints in the Sajjan Toshni magazine of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He toured South India in 1905 and again in 1904 and again in 1905. Places like Tirupati, Srirangam, Singhachal, Rajmahendri, Madras, Perambadur, Conjeeveram, Kumbakonam, and Madurai. While on tour, he collected all the information about the rites and rules of Vedic Tridand Vaishnav Sannyas from a Ramanuja Tridandi Swami at Perambadur. Wherever he would go in his travels, he would lecture, write, and debate the learned pundits of the day. He soon acquired such a reputation that his name would strike fear in the hearts of his philosophical adversaries. All bogus cults and sects were doomed in his presence. However, in Puri, Siddhanta Saraswati experienced such severe oppression and censure due to his preaching against the rhyming, kirtan, and Sakhi Bekhi doctrine of the popular Radha Raman Charan Das Babaji that finally Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur instructed him to go and perform bhajan near the Yogpit, the birthsite of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Naam Bhajan. In 1905, at the age of 31, he began his great vow, following the example of Namacharya Haridas Thakur, of chanting 3 lakh of names, 192 rounds per day. He determined that at the rate of 3 lakh names daily, it would take about 9 years to complete 1 billion names. He resided in a grass hut at the Yogpit for 4 years, and in the February of 1909, he built a cottage near the Yogpit at Vrajpatna, town of Vraja, on the site of the house of Sri Chandrasekhar Acharya, the uncle of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This place is considered to be non-different from the banks of Radhakund. There he remained, uninterruptedly executing his chanting. He strictly followed his vow and observed Chaturmasya, cooking rice, which had been dried in the sun, in ghee, and eating it from the floor in the manner of a cow. He would take rest lying on the ground, never using any pillows, and constantly chant and study the scriptures. No pillow? He would take rest lying on the ground, never using any pillows, and constantly chant and study the scriptures. Seeing his renunciation, his Gurudev, Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj said, quote, I observe that the renunciation of Sri Rupa Raghunath is manifest in my Prabhu. Unquote. He used to address his disciple as my Prabhu. In commenting on this period, Srila Prabhupada states, quote, from childhood he was a strict brahmachari, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, and he underwent very severe penances for starting this movement, worldwide movement. That was his mission. Unquote. When the roof of his kutir became broken, rather than take time away from his chanting, he would simply use an umbrella when it rained and go on chanting. Sometimes he had to go to different places, but he continued very strictly and completed his vows always. In 1906, Sri Rohini Kumar Ghosh, the nephew of Chandra Madhav Ghosh Mahashay, a former justice of the Calcutta High Court, had a wonderful dream and as a result approached Siddhanta Saraswati for initiation. The boy had gone to stay with some bowls, a so-called guru and his consort, who he was instructed to address as mother and father. These persons were actually sinful rascals in the guise of devotees, but while he was in Mayapur, he had the good fortune to hear from Siddhanta Saraswati for a long time. He returned to the place of the bowl and feeling ill, he lay down to rest. In a dream, the bowl took the form of a tiger and the consort the form of a tigress. They were about to devour the unfortunate lad who was trying his best to take shelter of Lord Gaur Sundar. At that moment, Siddhanta Saraswati arrived on the scene, chased the tigers away, and began to lead him to Mayapur. The boy awoke at daybreak and proceeded to Mayapur, where he heard discourses from Siddhanta Saraswati for several days. Finally, he begged for initiation from his savior so feelingly that Siddhanta Saraswati took mercy on him. Prior to this, Siddhanta Saraswati had never given initiation to anyone. His character was such that he never regarded his disciples as his disciples, but he used to see them as being that which was received from the lotus feet of his Guru. He used to address them as Prabhu. तुलसी प्लांट है मैम. टेबल देना वो. Sorry.
क्या?
नहीं मैंने पॉकेट थ्रेड ठीक कर दो।
हाँ, 200 बुद्धिया हो गया।
आपके नाम में इतनी शक्ति है हे प्रभु, है ना? आपने अपना नाम दिया हम सबके लिए, और इतना अच्छा मधुर नाम, चेर कल्याण साधन का जग कल्याण से मधुर नाम। जीवों का कल्याण करने के लिए, है ना, इस संसार में भगवान ने अपना नाम प्रकट किया। किसके लिए? जीवों का कल्याण करें। और हम लोग क्या है? जीव है ना? हमारे मधुर नाम बहुत मीठा है, लेकिन कब? जब ध्यान से सुनेंगे, ध्यान से करेंगे, प्रार्थना का भाव करेंगे ना, ठाकुर जी से प्रार्थना करना है। भगवान का गुणगान, कीर्तन गान थे, कीर्तन कीर्तन मतलब गुणगान। अगर किसी का कीर्ति कीर्ति गाना है, कीर्ति शब्द से आया कीर्ति, कीर्ति मतलब बाकी सबका तो कोई कीर्ति है ही नहीं, फिर भी गा रहे हैं। वास्तव में तो किसी का अगर गुणगान होना चाहिए तो किसका होना चाहिए? कृष्ण का होना चाहिए, जगन्नाथ जी का होना चाहिए। तो आप लोग मृदंग जब तक समझेगा तो ऐसे बजेगी जगन्नाथ जी का गुणगान आपका भी। कई बार मेरा सुन रही कि नहीं लोग, जगन्नाथ जी तो आपके हृदय में बैठे, वहीं से सुन लेते हैं आपका हृदय, है ना? तत्काल अनुसार हृदय में बैठ के सुनते ही सबका कैसे बजा रहा है, क्या सोच रहा है बजाते समय, है ना? हम भगवान को सुनाना है, बोलना चाहिए। जयति जयति देवो देवकी नंदनाय। देवकी पुत्र जो है भगवान, उनका जय, उनकी जय होनी चाहिए, उनका जय जयकार होना चाहिए, सब लोग उनको जय करना चाहिए। जयति जयति वृषवंश प्रदीप, वृषवंश के प्रदीप है, प्रदीप जो उसके सब वृषवंश को। जयति जयति मेघ श्यामल कोमलांग, ये कानू मेघ के समान श्यामल है, कोमल है। जयति जयति पृथ्वी भर नासो मुकुंदा, वो भगवान है जो पृथ्वी के सारे संकट का नाश करने वाले, जिनका नाम है मुकुंद। मुकुंद मतलब जो सबको दुखों से छुटकारा प्रदान करते हैं, कहते हैं मुकुंद, मुकुंद मुक्ति देने वाले। आपको दुख है? आपको दुख है? दुख है? पक्का? जैसे गजेंद्र को दुख है, हे गोविंद हे गोपाल, हे गोविंद हे गोपाल, रक्षा कीजिए मेरी, हैं? मेरी नाव डूबने वाली है, जीवन की नाव है कि नहीं? गजेंद्र ने प्रार्थना किया भगवान से कि मेरी नाव डूब जाएगी अगर आप नहीं आएंगे तो। अब तो जीवन हारे, अब तो मर ही जाऊंगा आप नहीं आएंगे, है कि नहीं? इस प्रकार से पुकारा उसने, कातर भाव में पुकारा। उसी तरह से भगवान को पुकारना है। पुकारेंगे आप सब? हरे कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम
Thank you.